Good afternoon, welcome, boa tarde, bom dia para todos aqueles que estão nos escutando do Brasil. Buenos días a los amigos de la Amazonia española hablante. Entonces, we're very happy and honored to have you all here. This is a very important moment for all of us because this panel of over 200 scientists have worked in this report during this whole period of the pandemic. This is a landmark report. It's the first of its kind. So you're very privileged that you will be listening. The first statement or the first assessment of the Amazon basin. It is an important report in an important moment. It's very timely, and we're also very pleased that we are here at the COP26. Some of us, like Ambassador Vargas, we have been involved with many COPs, and we are very pleased that here, for the first time, we see the forest very present, nature very present, and I think it's very timely to have this report available for all of you now. So let me go quickly through the choreography of today. We will have some of the scientists joining us. The two co-chairs will be here. Unfortunately, one of the co-chairs is passing security, so she will arrive. But we also have a co-chair, Carlos Nobre. Many of you know him. He will be talking to us from Sao Paulo. And then we will have some of the panelists here, like my compatriot, my Bolivian compatriot, Marielo, who will speak about the findings of the panel. And we will have a couple of videos, and some of the scientists that remain firm here after all these long 2 weeks will also speak briefly. And we also have the honor and the pleasure of having the Secretary of Environment and Sustainability for the state of Pará, who will also make some comments. We are also expecting to have with us one of our major indigenous peoples leader, Gregorio Mirabal. I'm sure he's somewhere in the COP, so he will arrive hopefully on time to also talk to us. So let me then, without much ado, ask to please show us our chair, Carlos Nobre, who is, as you probably know, one of the foremost scientists in the region, and devoted his life to the Amazon, and also member of many academies of science, and former member of the IPCC. After Carlos, we will have the pleasure of having our other co-chair, who was, as mentioned to you, kind of hold up because of security, and she will speak particularly about aquatic issues. And then we will have, again, one of our leader scientists, members of the Scientific Steering Committee, Mercedes Bustamante, who will speak primarily about biodiversity. And then we'll have Marielos, who has the task of providing to all of you the recommendations of a report that has over 1,300 pages. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but I'm sure Marielos will be up to the challenge. So thank you all so much again for being here, and without much ado, I will please ask to show the video of Carlos. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mercedes Bustamante, and I would like to thank for the opportunity to be here today on behalf of the SPA Authors and Steering Committee. Today's key message.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, all of you. And also I want to thank all the more than 200 authors of the report, the Science Panel for the Amazon. 2-year work, very hard work. Thank you very much. Thank you also Professor Jeffrey Sachs, Emma Torres, and all the people who supported Technical Secretariat of the Science Panel for the Amazon. I just want to say a few words here, introductory words, highlighting one aspect of the key message that the report dealt with. That's the risk of the tipping point. The report really analyzes the evolution of the Amazonian ecosystems for millions of years, the geological evolution, the biological evolution, how the ecological systems were formed, how humans came to the Amazon 12,000 years ago and learned how to live with the standing forest, how they construct this tremendous biocultural diversity as well in the most species diversity in the planet. And unfortunately, in the last 50 years, the development model for the Amazon was one of trees, obstacle to development. Trees must be burned to create fertilizers for cattle ranch pastures, for crops. And this is leading to the risk of this tipping point in which 60 to 70% of the Amazon may turn into a degraded open canopy ecosystem. Why we are so concerned? Because we see those risks unfolding before our eyes, the observations. And the panel, the report really goes into the depth of the risks of tipping point. And we are seeing the dry season becoming 3 to 4 weeks longer in southern Amazon, from southern Peru, Bolivia, Mato Grosso, Pará to the Atlantic. Hotter dry season, drier dry season, and increasing in wet climate tree species in a huge area in southern Amazon all the way to French Guiana. And in southeastern Amazon, the forest has become a carbon source, the forest, because of increased tree mortality. So we are really at the edge of this cliff of the tipping point. Therefore, it's mandatory, and this is one of the key messages of the Science Panel for the Amazon report being launched today. It's a moratorium on deforestation, on forest degradation, because there are 17% of the Amazon deforested, another 17% in several stages of forest degradation, and also a moratorium on wildfires. We have to stop that, mostly in areas near the tipping point, and then bringing deforestation, forest degradation, wildfires to zero before 2030. In the first days of this COP26, tropical countries, most tropical countries, sign an agreement. So the Science Panel for the Amazon has constructed also many proposals for sustainable pathways. So we have to pursue a sustainable future, sustainable pathways for the Amazon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Let me pass the floor to our co-chair, Andrea Encalada, a scientist from Ecuador, expert on aquatic resources in the Amazon, and also vice rector of the university there. Andrea.
Thank you, Emma. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know, we're showing the wonderful. It's a great pleasure to be here. Carlos gave a great introduction of the enormous effort that has been the writing of the report of the Science Panel for the Amazon. I want to thank all the authors, reviewers, and especially the Secretariat for the incredible work that they have done. These reports not only help synthesize all the vast information, thank you, Emma, from the Amazon, but also allows us to understand the historic moment that we face. We're close to tipping points in many fragile ecosystems in the Amazon, and this can change the destiny not only of us humans, but of the entire ecosystems and millions of species. Today, I'm going to focus on the main findings on the freshwater ecosystems of the Amazon. And I want to start with this painting. This painting is of the Amazon of Frederick Church, inspired on the voyages of Alexander von Humboldt. And some of you will say that this is not the Amazon landscape, but it is, because the Amazon starts in the Andean Cordillera. This mountain range forms the limits of the Amazon basin, and here's where the clouds coming from the east precipitate, drain, and started to accumulate on rivers that flow down to form the largest river system in the world. I'm gonna show you some pictures And basically, I want you to take two messages from this picture and two key points. And these key points are connectivity and complexity. As you see, along these elevational gradients, water drains and form first streams and then large rivers and then more complex rivers. The Amazon is not just a rainforest. The Amazon basin is a mosaic of heterogeneous landscapes, aquatic and terrestrial, that have a strong connectivity along the gradient. And this connectivity property are not only longitudinal from high and up to down, but also lateral. So rivers invade terrestrial territory and inundate huge areas. For example, this Andean Amazon Piedmont, and also these plains inundating Varcea and Igapo forests, playing a critical role in ecological processes and also on ecosystem functions. This magnificent Amazon riverscape contributes annually around 6.6 trillion cubic meters of fresh water to the oceans, along with around 800 million tons of suspended sediments. Here you can see in these graphs some of this extensive river network with the 4 levels of connectivity: longitudinal, that we already talked, lateral, but also one important one that is the vertical connection, which is precipitation and groundwater, and also the most critical one, which is temporal connectivity. That is how water flows changes through time and how this variation in the regime and the rhythm connects with the fall pulse dynamics of the rainforest. And for the interconnected aquatic and terrestrial ecological and ecosystem processes like carbon, nutrients, and sediment transport and processing, and therefore on the productivity on many lowland areas. A great example of the importance of this connectivity is the migration of the El Dorado Goliath catfish that travels from the Amazon estuary to the Piedmont to spawn and then lay the eggs and return to the lowlands. The migration triggered by the changes of water flow are very important and depends deeply on the seasonality of the system and in the maintenance of the free-flowing rivers. Dam rivers interrupt these connections and have strong implications for fish and fisheries. Another critical point is the huge diversity that we have in the Amazon, and it's the same for aquatic ecosystems. The diversity is, we know that is tremendous. However, we still know very little about the diversity. The group that is better studied are the fishes. And we know that at least now we have 2,500 Amazon species. However, the actual number must be way higher than this, probably 3,000 species. And it's a concern that we still don't know that many and we need to describe them. Of course, many of these fishes are important subsidies for food for Amazonian communities. Like Manaus, Leticia, Iquitos, they live a lot on and it's very important for the local economy. However, there are poor regulations of fisheries on many of these large species are considered already overfished. Also, a critical problem that we have on the area is the existing and proposed hydroelectric dams, especially those that interrupt completely the flow and cause fragmentation in the connectivity in these systems. There is a strong effects on fish populations and also on the transport of sediments, nutrients, and carbon to the lowland areas that are impacting the productivity of these areas. Also, there are important consequences on CO2 emissions from the extremely large reservoirs that are emitting a lot of CO2. Another big problem is the sewage pollution that we have on the area. Most of the cities in the Amazon don't have treatment of sewage, and this is having a strong impacts. And this photo here of Manaus could show you the sad reality that we have with garbage in the riverways. So to summarize, the Amazon freshwater ecosystems are under threat, and there's an urgency to stop this freshwater degradation. Some of the tipping points that Carlos was talking about on terrestrial ecosystem impact equally on aquatic ecosystems. And the changes in regional climate and seasonal patterns change are going to have a strong impact on freshwater ecosystem dynamics. We're talking about probably going to some intermittent rivers, which is a condition that we don't know for the rivers ecosystems in the Amazon that we may face in the future. So what should we do about this? So there's no single solution, and we need to work on several fronts. And Marielos is going to talk and elaborate a little bit more on the recommendations. But there are three main pillars that I want to talk about this living vision of the Amazon that came in the report. The first one is to conserve, sustain, and manage, restore, and remediate ecosystems. And I want to give an example of this. Most of you know that we have protected areas in terrestrial land, however, not in the rivers. So we are proposing to have fluvial reserves to maintain this natural connectivity of the system. Another critical point is to invest in sustainability, standing forests, and flowing rivers bioeconomy. And there is a lot of examples on this as well, but one critical example could be to invest on freshwater education, fisheries research, and also on implemented technology innovation on sustainable energy solutions. Something that is critical here is to plan better and coordinate multilateral agreements between countries to the optimization and construction of new dams to minimize fragmentation. Examples of innovative computational sustainability models propose optimal solutions to maximize energy and minimize risk to damage river ecosystems. And lastly, it's very important that we have people empowerment and governance. We have seen examples already in fisheries, for example, that there is a co-design between fishermen and local governments officials to better regulation of fisheries in some Amazon areas. So we need to scale up those initiatives to other places and engage fishermen in planning and policy making, recognizing different knowledge systems. So with this, I would like to invite everyone to help us and to put in action some of the recommendations that we have in the report. They are critical, they are important. We're still on time, but as Carlos mentioned, we are on the edge of these tipping points and we need to take some action. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. Now we're going to hear from Mercedes Bustamante, a senior leading scientist of the panel, expert on biodiversity, member of the IPCC and of the IPABS. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mercedes Bustamante, and I would like to thank for the opportunity to be here today on behalf of the SPA authors and steering committee. Today's key messages are part of a unique report produced during a pandemic that has severely affected the Amazon region and its peoples. Thank you to all involved in the process of co-design and generation of knowledge that is a hallmark of the SPA. The SPA addressed potential solutions for a system in crisis and stressed the urgency to address these solutions. We live in the context of multiple and interrelated crises. Amazonian ecosystems and peoples are facing potentially reversible and catastrophic risks. However, there is a narrow window of opportunity to change this trajectory, and it is feasible. We have scalable solutions, and they can produce better outcomes for society and economies. The fate of the Amazon is central to the solution to the global crisis. The Amazon represents a large component of the global carbon cycle and is a critical element of the global climate system. It is also home to a notable biological and cultural diversity. The resilience of the Amazonian ecosystems is dependent on the complex interactions of its extraordinary, unique, and irreplaceable biocultural diversity. So, solutions must consider diversity and complexity. The modern Amazon basin reflects complex geological and biological processes operating over many millions of years. Maintaining the altitudinal connectivity from the Andes to the lowlands is crucial to conserve the Amazon basin biodiversity. The Amazon biodiversity represents a significant share of the global species richness, but Its biocultural diversity is equally remarkable and has also strong linkages to sustainability. Multiple pressures are driving deforestation and degradation in the Amazon, and changes are happening at unprecedented rates. So, how can we stop this spiral of degradation? The elements of a fair and just transformation of the Amazon in the present and future involve multiple and connected dimensions. These are organized here in 4 major groups converging to the Living Amazon vision. The dimensions will be discussed in the next presentation. Here, I would like to highlight the potential of the bioeconomy as one of the pillars of a fair and just transformation of the region, and a viable alternative to predatory forms of development. To be part of the transformation, the Amazon bioeconomy must be inclusive, connecting diverse knowledge systems, and the organization of fair markets must assure the sharing of benefits. This bioeconomy can stimulate equitable development of rural and urban economies. However, successful initiatives will demand good governance and financial support, including knowledge-based policies and effective participation of civil society in decision-making. Financial investment must be sustainability-oriented, and in particular, we stress the importance of multilateral collaboration to curb illegal activities. These activities are at the center of environmental damages, conflicts, and violence. Recent reports highlight the record number of forest defenders that were murdered. It's striking how this is affecting the Amazon region and its peoples. To conclude this presentation, the vision of the Living Amazon has to include regional ecosystems and forests restored and maintained, economies built on the foundation of healthy forests standing, free rivers flowing, and regional societies empowered to conduct this transformation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much to Carlos, Mercedes, and Andrea. And I'm going to give the floor to Marielos, that has the challenge of presenting the main findings of this, like Professor Sachs calls it, magnum opus, in an abbreviated deal. Marielos.
Thank you, Emma. Good afternoon to all of you. Very early in the writing process of our assessment report, we realized the need to look forward, the need to look for solutions that will allow us to move towards sustainable development pathways for the Amazon. Today, I want to share with you some of our main recommendations, and then I'm summarizing about a bit more than 100 pages per slide. So, okay. But let me before doing that, let me start by saying that there are no simple or single solutions for the socio-environmental problems of the Amazon. Instead, we need a broad set of initiatives to be adopted, replicated, adjusted to local conditions, and scaled up. We also need to assure the participation of Amazonian people in the planning and implementation of these initiatives are crucial for their success. Therefore, the political representation of Amazonian peoples at all levels of governance needs to be promoted and safeguarded. A central recommendation of our assessment report is zero deforestation in the Amazon for 2030. So we really are happy with the declaration on forests made here in Glasgow some days ago. And we are also very happy that Amazonian countries have signed this agreement. So now it is time to start discussing the details on how to reach this goal. What are the concrete actions that will be taken? In which time frame? And where exactly? And how exactly? For example, we think that we need to define annual milestones so that deforestation starts decreasing already this year or at the latest the coming year. We also think that deforestation of all growth forests should not be allowed anymore. And finally, we think that we need to define deforestation moratoriums for areas that are too fragile or that are already very close to tipping points, as it is the case of southern Amazon, of other areas in the Brazilian Amazon where high level of deforestation already exist. But we need much more than stopping deforestation. Our report highlights the urgent need to move towards a fair and just transformation. So we ask ourselves, what are the principles and values that will allow us to achieve the living vision for the Amazon? This vision needs to be inclusive and just and promote healthy societies, healthy environments, and healthy economies. So once we define this goal, this vision for this living vision for the Amazon, we came with key strategies or key dimensions that are needed to get there. These strategies include measures to conserve, restore, and remediate terrestrial and aquatic systems. It also requires developing innovative bioeconomy arrangements for human environmental well-being, standing forests, and flowing rivers. And it also requires strengthening Amazonian citizenship and governance. To achieve that, to really be able to implement this living vision for the Amazon, we need global partnerships for resources and financial investments that are sustainability oriented. We also need to implement multilateral Amazonian coordinations for many aspects, including curbing illegal activities that are actually, as you know, all are aware, occurring everywhere in the Amazon. But let me give you a concrete example on how this vision could work. About 870,000 square kilometers of the Amazon have been already deforested, and a similar area is considered degraded forest. This means that there are plenty of opportunities to implement restoration. Restoring the productivity of abandoned agricultural land will allow covering the demand for food, fiber, and other products without the need to convert additional forested areas into agricultural land. So we think that restoration efforts aiming to increase the productivity should be in the package to achieve zero deforestation to 2030. In this picture you see an agroforestry system in Brazil. It includes 8 species, and these species planted here were probably selected using local knowledge, local preferences, what the farmers like to have, but also scientific knowledge, what variety to plant, and what species do we plant given the current climate change conditions that we are living at. The products being produced here need to have a market, at least at the local level. There are some species being produced in systems like that have reached international markets. Think, for example, about acai. Acai 20, 30 years ago was and still is the staple food in Belém. But nowadays, if you want, you can have acai for your breakfast in Amsterdam, Sydney, London, you name it, and you have it. You have that option. So this increase in the production and decrease of the demand of acai has also brought lots of changes. What do you do with all the waste resulting from acai production? Can we develop byproducts from the seeds that are being discarded? What is the technological innovation that we can use in this case to solve this particular situation? Not all products, not all this diversity of products that we can obtain from the Amazon need to be star products like acai or the Brazilian nuts. Also, maybe if you had breakfast today with muesli, probably you also had a Brazilian nuts. But all products that we include, they do need a market, and governments can play a role in creating those markets. For example, through the Breakfast at the School program in Brazil, or the pregnancy bonus in Bolivia, governments have been able to create a market for products that are produced locally. So farmers have access to these markets that otherwise wouldn't exist. All these aspects, from production to the final market and the share of benefits, are included in the living vision for the Amazon. Sustainable development pathways need to be developed based on the best science and advanced technologies, combined with traditional knowledge. So we really need to increase the investments on science, technology, and innovation in the Amazon. That includes also increasing education at our schools in the Amazon, but also at the university. So there is really a lot to do in there in terms of financial support. And global action is needed. If we want to guarantee the success of the implementation of this vision for a living vision for the Amazon, we also need to take global actions. So we need to agree upon how we are going to address climate change, because climate change is affecting already the Amazon and is affecting already production systems of Amazonian people. And we also need to take global action to improve governance of supply chains to avoid exporting deforestation and environmental harm. And I think in that last point, I think all of us, regardless for where we live, we can play a significant role. We can demand to our governments that we want to have products, we want to eat products that are deforestation free. We can demand our banks and our pension funds to invest on activities that are not leading to deforestation. So we, regardless of where you are around the world, can really have a significant contribution to the establishment of the living vision for the Amazon. So in conclusion, it is time to implement this living vision for the Amazon. It has to be included in the packages to be discussed to achieve zero deforestation and degradation. Otherwise, it will not work. We need to mobilize financing and foster partnership for achieving sustainable development pathways. And we need to support our standing forests and flowing rivers. Let us work together towards a better future for Amazonian people and for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marielos. I think it's a very wonderful job you did in summarizing the main findings of the magnificent report. Es un honor y un placer invitar a Gregorio Mirabal, uno de nuestros grandes líderes de la Amazonia, coordinador de COICA y gran amigo de todos nosotros, y sobre todo ha sido una gran característica de este panel, que es un panel que 75% de ellos son científicos de la región, y tenemos científicos de los pueblos indígenas que han contribuido con conocimiento de los pueblos indígenas y también local. Y eso ha sido una de las cosas más significativas de este panel que obviamente queremos mantener. Gregorio, tienes la palabra.
Bueno, en primer lugar, un gran saludo a todos y todas, hermanos y hermanas. Es un honor estar con ustedes acá, este panel de grandes mujeres. Quería decirles, bueno, que ya la delegación de la COICA de la Amazonía termina hoy su participación en esta Conferencia Mundial de Cambio Climático. Ha sido la delegación más grande que hemos tenido en los últimos 10 años, con los hermanos de Brasil, de Bolivia, de Colombia, de Perú, de Ecuador, de Venezuela, de las Guyanas. Ha sido una delegación muy diversa de diferentes organizaciones que conforman la COICA, y hemos estado aquí y hemos estado en las calles también. Entonces es importante, nos llevamos el corazón del pueblo que salió a caminar con nosotros en la Marcha Mundial por el Clima, y nos llevamos también la visión de los gobiernos y en este caso, en este escenario de la ciencia. Queremos agradecer al panel científico por la Amazonía, donde estamos participando, y queremos decir aquí que entramos al panel científico por la Amazonía porque queríamos posesionar y estamos posesionando con la ciencia que la Amazonía es nuestra casa. Hemos vivido miles de años en la Amazonía y que la Amazonía es un ser vivo, que la Amazonía tiene espíritu, que la Amazonía está presente en 9 países, y para salvar la Amazonía necesitamos trabajar en los 9 países, sin discriminación, porque cada Amazonía, por la de Brasil, que es más grande, es tan importante como la de las Guyanas, que es pequeña, o la de Venezuela, que es pequeñita, pero también forma parte de ese ser vivo. Sin uno de ellos no funciona. Entonces, esa visión la hemos contrastado aquí con la ciencia, nuestras amigas, nuestras hermanas y algunos científicos como Carlos, como Jeffrey, que han estado allí dirigiendo, han entendido ese mensaje de que necesitamos trabajar juntos y que necesitamos trabajar también con los gobiernos. Es una responsabilidad de los gobiernos hacer su trabajo en el tema de derechos de los pueblos, en el tema de derechos de la naturaleza, en el tema de derechos económicos, que respete a la selva amazónica. Una economía, lo ha dicho Carlos, lo ha dicho el panel, le han dicho bioeconomía. Para nosotros es una economía que respete los árboles, que respete la fruta, que respete el espíritu de los pueblos. Y eso es posible, lo acabamos de ver ahora, eso es posible. Ustedes se pueden pintar con la cara con productos amazónicos, ustedes se pueden pintar las uñas con productos amazónicos, ustedes pueden disfrutar de alimentos amazónicos sin deforestar, sin destruir la selva. Pero no queremos que se siga deforestando por carne, por agronegocio, por palma aceitera. Eso ya no es posible, eso no puede ser en este siglo XXI. El extractivismo tampoco puede ser esa economía que necesitamos. Entonces, yo pido aquí que ustedes nos ayuden, que el mundo escuche, que el planeta, la humanidad oiga, que la selva amazona está gritando una nueva oportunidad para seguir respirando, para seguir viviendo con el apoyo de todos. Y eso significa una transformación espiritual, mental y de una nueva visión de la economía. Eso significa para nosotros trabajar juntos con ustedes. Eso significa que los grandes anuncios que se han hecho en esta conferencia mundial de cambio climático, que han ofrecido muchísimos recursos, realmente lleguen a los territorios, lleguen a cada uno de esos países, porque los pueblos indígenas estamos cuidando cada segundo, no por un proyecto, sino todos los días. Los proyectos se acaban, necesitamos programas que sean permanentes, que no se despeguen del territorio, con la ciencia, con la economía, con la empresa que respete a la selva y a los pueblos, a los derechos de nuestros pueblos. Eso queremos. Entonces, queremos pedirle que por favor oigan, sientan y hagamos acciones, que oigan este informe, que escuchen este informe, que implementen las recomendaciones de este informe, porque ha sido un esfuerzo científico, ha sido un esfuerzo de los pueblos indígenas. Es una voz de la selva, no solamente de los pueblos indígenas, de los campesinos, de los afrodescendientes, de los que viven en la Amazonía, que ya no somos solamente los pueblos indígenas. Entonces, por favor, oigan a la ciencia, oigan a los pueblos, implementen acciones respetando el trabajo que se ha hecho en este informe, y pido a los gobiernos que la revisen y que llamen a los pueblos indígenas y que llamen a los pueblos y que llamen al panel para la implementación, porque ya no tenemos mucho tiempo para eso. Nosotros solos no vamos a poder, pero juntos lo vamos a lograr con la ciencia, con la economía, y con el poder político que en este momento tiene que dar una respuesta para este informe y para la humanidad. Tiene que haber una respuesta para los niños, para las familias, para el planeta, para la selva amazónica. Tenemos que seguir respirando juntos, tenemos que seguir viviendo y tomando agua pura para seguir viviendo. No es posible vivir sin agua, sin árboles, sin biodiversidad, sin montañas, sin la selva amazónica. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Gregorio, por tus inspiradoras palabras. Y te agradecemos mucho por todo el apoyo que siempre has dado al panel desde su inicio. Ahora les voy a, let me just now show you a small video about an very interesting initiative of exactly a combination of knowledge, local knowledge, and scientific knowledge, which has a track record of work in a reserve called Marimawa. Thank you.
Aqui vocês se sentam no coração da Amazônia. Quando eu acordo, eu fico ouvindo o som dos pássaros, né? Eu gosto de ouvir. Uma vida que o ar respira livre. Eu trabalho como professora, aí no tempo do manejo eu trabalhava com visceradora de peixe, né? Que a gente viscera no tempo do manejo. Chego na escola, inicio minha aula, sempre com plano de aula, dando o percurso do que nós vivemos, a realidade da nossa comunidade, a realidade da reserva. Eu não ouvi. Qual é o nome desse peixe? Piraru. E esse? Esse aqui? Existia muita invasão. Entrava barcos de pesca aqui dentro. Iam capturando todos os peixes que eram o maior.
Era muito difícil a nossa vida aqui de pescador. Se soubesse que tinha um pirarucu, você trabalhava o dia todo para tentar pegar ele. Naquele lago, né? Não tinha peixe, né? E você pescava para adquirir aí pouquíssimo, mal para comprar as necessidades básicas de casa.
O Instituto Mamirauá é um instituto de pesquisa. O Programa de Manejo de Pesca é um departamento que foi criado para prestar apoio, assessoria técnica a essas comunidades com relação ao uso dos recursos pesqueiros. O projeto de manejo, ele analisa os dados de produção e que tem como base a metodologia de contagem do pirarucu, que é algo milenar. Existe uma cota definida para ser retirada, então ela é baseada no número de adultos. A gente sensibilizou a população no sentido da importância de respeitar as regras, né, para que eles tivessem recurso abundante, garantia de segurança alimentar e geração de renda. É muito importante, né, ter o intercâmbio da vivência da ciência com a vivência que nós temos aqui. E foi tendo essa parceria com o projeto Instituto Mamirauá que a gente chegou onde hoje a gente está aqui. A gente tem para mostrar, a gente tem para tirar, a gente tem para vender, né? A gente tem aí ainda muitos ainda peixes na natureza, né? O manejo que começou aqui na comunidade São Raimundo de Jarauá, hoje está presente em 22 municípios do estado do Amazonas, nos outros estados da região norte do Brasil, né, na área de ocorrência do pirarucu, e até em países da América do Sul também.
Mamirauá faz um trabalho extremamente importante, que é a socialização da informação também. Além de coletar e produzir informações científicas robustas, Mamirauá procura socializar essas informações para poder ter um manejo adequado de áreas de conservação na Amazônia. Painel Científico da Amazônia. Foi uma iniciativa extremamente importante no sentido de colocar pesquisadores em conjunto, né, para conversar. A ciência é uma atividade social. São mais de 200 pesquisadores trabalhando em conjunto para poder iniciar o entendimento do que é o maior bioma que nós temos, o maior bioma tropical que nós temos na face da Terra. A Amazônia abriga uma tremenda diversidade de plantas e animais que continuam evoluindo e se adaptando às mudanças que esses ambientes oferecem. Eu gosto sempre de lembrar que a Amazônia é como se fosse uma imensa biblioteca e aí a gente tem essas informações guardadas todas. Importante dentro deste contexto que a gente está vivendo hoje, de contínuo desmatamento. Quando a gente derruba uma árvore desse tipo que está aqui do nosso lado, o que a gente está destruindo não é só essa árvore, esse organismo que está aqui, mas tudo que depende desse organismo, né? A Amazônia é extremamente complexa e para cada parte da Amazônia, tá certo? Nós precisamos de uma solução específica. O que nós precisamos hoje é lembrar sempre que a ciência contemporânea pode dialogar com o etnoconhecimento, com o conhecimento que está contido nessas populações ribeirinhas, que foram aprendendo ao longo do tempo com os seus antepassados.
Eles sabem exatamente a época do ano em que a fruta dá, que tipo de peixe se alimenta daquela fruta, da influência da lua no sucesso ou insucesso das pescarias. Então, tudo é um conjunto de fatores, né, que influenciam essa forma de lidar com a natureza.
Então, nós temos ainda um trabalho extremamente grande pela frente, de socializar essas informações e dar escalabilidade para todas elas, de tal forma que a gente, no futuro, tenha uma proteção mais abrangente desta região, com vistas à inclusão social e geração de renda na região. Nós precisamos ter certeza que a sociedade está se apropriando dessas informações que são produzidas dentro das instituições de pesquisa de uma maneira geral.
Me sinto privilegiada de poder fazer parte dessa história, para que produza, mas produza com qualidade, que produza com sustentabilidade.
Eu sou muito esperançoso do futuro. Eu acho que nós temos chamado mais recentemente de saúde planetária, que é um caminho possível, quando eu cuido não só do próximo, mas eu cuido do ambiente em que eu vivo.
Thank you all very much, and I think this is a good moment that we're going to, after seeing this fantastic video, also and hearing Gregorio saying that it's the moment to engage policymakers, it's the moment to engage private sector, financial sector, etc. And we have the privilege to have with us the Secretary of Environment and Sustainability of the state of Pará, one of the states that are taking leadership in this area, and I will ask you if you can comment a couple of minutes for us on your views about what you have just heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for the science panel for the Amazon and SDS for the invitation to me. I ask you if I may speak in Portuguese or maybe just in English. Can I? Bem, eu ouvi atentamente todas as exposições aqui e, primeiramente, dar os parabéns por esse envolvimento de tantos cientistas. Acabei de conversar com a Anne, que participou de alguns capítulos. Isso é muito importante. Se nós percebermos, uma das coisas que mais foi pontuada nessa COP foi a participação das comunidades tradicionais e dos indígenas no envolvimento da elaboração das políticas públicas. E nós, do Pará, entendemos que a elaboração do Plano Amazônia Agora, que é um plano transversal de desenvolvimento e redução de emissões e combate ao desmatamento, mas também de desenvolvimento sustentável, é um reencontro com a nossa ancestralidade, é um reencontro com as nossas raízes. Porque uma das estratégias postas, inclusive queria ressaltar que quase todas, se não todas as estratégias que estão postas nesse brief, desse policy brief que vocês entregaram, estão em sinergia com o Plano Amazônia Agora. E uma das estratégias que nós temos como principal é a bioeconomia. E é exatamente isso que o nosso colega indígena falava, dizer que bioeconomia, para nós, é aquilo que a gente sempre fez tradicionalmente. Quem vai na feira do Ver o Peso, em Belém, e vê aquela quantidade de raízes, de óleos essenciais, de líquidos que nós tomamos banho naturalmente, aquilo já é bioeconomia há séculos. Né? Então, esse é um reencontro que nós temos. E, para além do que vocês estão fazendo, e agradeço mais uma vez pelo convite de estar aqui como alguém de governo para participar de uma coisa tão importante como essa, talvez uma das mais importantes que eu tenha participado nesta COP pessoalmente, dizer que é preciso governos acolherem esses estudos e transformarem esses estudos em políticas públicas. E que o Pará, e eu posso falar também pela Amazônia, pelo consórcio da Amazônia Legal, nós estamos prontos para acolher e transformar esses estudos, esses reportes em políticas públicas. Mais uma vez, parabéns, muito grato por estar participando disso. E visitem o Pará, venham Pará para a gente conversar entre governo, o Science Panel for the Amazon e o SDS. Muito obrigado, Emma.
Muito obrigada, secretário. É um grande prazer ter você conosco e aceitamos o convite para ir para o Belém. I would like also to follow up saying that the panel will have a briefing with the Amazon Treaty Corporation, precisely transmitting the findings of the panel, but also highlighting the need that the governments have to work together. And the panel is available to provide scientific inputs for the policy making, both at the national and at the regional level. Thank you very much. I would like now, we have a few minutes, and unfortunately we would have loved to have many more of the scientists of the panel. Some of them were here, but they left. And we have few, and I'm very happy that some of them can make some comments that complement this whole effort. Some of them have met for the first time, because we have been working virtually. Our first meeting was supposed to be in March, invited by President Duque in Colombia, and the pandemic started. So we have been working virtually ever since. So it's been a tremendous effort and privilege. We're very honored that some of the few of the scientists stayed here. So Anne, would you like to make some comments?
Well, for me, it's an honor to be here and to meet some friends that we have been meeting over in 2D for the past year. Well, but I'm very happy to see the report is out, but I just want to do a very brief remark. The Amazon, as everybody said, is a complex system and is a very rich system. So there's no single solution to take the Amazon in a sustainable pathway. And this is very important and it needs to be highlighted. So the word diversity is important. We need to support diversity in all the ways. Diversity in economies, diversity in cultures, diversity in social systems, diversity in ecological systems. So, and this is all about what the panel brings to society. So the way the report was built, it brings the best scientific evidences of how diversity is important. And well, the chapter that I helped to coordinate talks about the vision, the living vision for the Amazon. And it was a chapter where we encompass what are the visions, or what would be the vision that the entire Amazon panel thought that we need to take in order to take the Amazon to the sustainable pathway. Also included a lot of recommendations from the indigenous scientists that participate in the panel. So we think, just to finish, that we cannot go forward if we don't take seriously like our the conservation strategies that we need to take seriously, if we don't restore the landscapes that have been very degraded and restored, if we don't remediate them because part of them have been heavily polluted, It's very, very important to empower indigenous peoples and local communities. So the empowerment of civil society and urban, and to make this integration between urban and rural area is very important. And Painel is very specific about it. We need, when think about the Amazon, we need to think about forests. We still think about forests, but it's very important to think about aquatic systems. And this is very, very, very important. But last but not least, the governance is a very important issue, and that needs to be together with financial support for to put together this pathway of sustainable and sustainability bioeconomies. So thank you.
Obrigada, Annie. Thank you. As I said, the majority of our scientists are from the region, but we have our global partners that have spent decades in the Amazon, and Jos is one of them. Jos.
Thank you very much. A great pleasure to speak a little bit about some of the report's findings here. So we've heard a lot about deforestation, and we know that deforestation is without a doubt the most visible and detrimental human influence on the forests, on the upland systems. But what I want to convince you today is the importance of looking at degradation as well, degradation to the forests. And there are two key measures, reasons why degradation is important. The first is carbon emissions. There's a whole world of evidence now showing that actually the carbon emissions from degradation, from fires, from edge effects, from logging could be as high as, or even higher in dry years as the emissions from deforestation alone. And we shouldn't be surprised by that. A single wildfire, for example, burning the understory of the forest, may not look very large, but it kills 40% of the Amazonian trees. They have no evolutionary experience of fire. They're very, very sensitive. So, and it kills even not just the small trees, but some of the largest trees. And those large trees hold most of the carbon in the forest and take centuries to recover. So some of the data shows that a forest that burned once, 3 decades later, still has 25% less carbon than neighboring forests that did not burn. The second aspect is the biodiversity. Degradation is driving as much biodiversity loss as deforestation alone. Again, the species are very sensitive to degradation. Amazonian species such as understory birds have evolved over millions of years avoiding light. They've adapted, they're from a very stable environment. They won't cross even small roads, and they will avoid forest edges. When you burn a forest or you log a forest, these species tend to disappear from those forests. And degradation is really contributing now to not just the loss of species, but to their potential extinction. When we think about extinction being in the Atlantic forest in Brazil, but actually now there are species on the border of Pará and Maranhão which are on the edge of extinction, down to the last few individuals, and degradation and fires are a key driver of that. So what do we do about degradation? Is tackling deforestation enough? To some extent, if you tackle deforestation, hugely important, you would stop the creation of new edges. You also remove one of the main sources of fire from the landscape. So that's good news. But deforestation alone, tackling that, will not address all forms of deforestation. To do that, you need to tackle the illegal markets in timber. Most of the timber extracted goes towards illegal markets. You need to improve pasture management in many places, so you remove fire, one of the key ignition sources for the forest fires, from the pastures. You need to work very closely with traditional peoples so that you can improve their slash and burn techniques, and work closely with them to do that, because these people just depend on fire for their livelihoods. You cannot just ban it, but you need to improve it. And you need to, perhaps restoration could also have a key role in actually avoiding degradation. If we engage in sensible restoration, targeting, for example, forest buffers, targeting regions where the forests are particularly flammable, then we could actually decrease temperatures at the landscape scale, perhaps even increase regional rainfall as well. So those are some of the measures. And these are tackling degradation is important now, but it's only going to get more important as climate change advances in the Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh. And now the floor is open for questions or comments that some of you would like to have. Also, my colleague here, Cecil, is going to get some questions from the people that are streaming. Yes, please.
Hi, I wanted to ask you about the deforestation question. A lot of people think that means don't cut down any more trees, but it actually just means avoid land use conversion to farms or cities. It doesn't mean no more logging. So when you talk about keeping the standing forest, do you mean not cutting down giant trees, or do you mean this kind of subtlety about deforestation, meaning logging and replanting? I think it's an important point.
Yeah, hugely important point. I mean, this is getting onto my personal view. I have a view that sustainable forest management is difficult to actually achieve in very diverse tropical forests. But so that, I mean, the key priority now has to be on avoiding land use change, that kind of deforestation. However, we do need to avoid illegal timber extraction, because that's obviously much more damaging than reduced impact logging. But I would also see in the longer term perhaps a change from, and the report also proposes this, a change from focusing on removing timber from standing natural forests and actually planting some of these timber species which have high value and could grow in the degraded areas that have already had land use change, because they could have an important role in mitigating some of the local climate impacts of land use change, and also they sequester carbon and could also replace other industries such as cattle.
Hi, I'd like to ask a question to Professor Marielos. In the report, you say that your recommendation is in line with the Glasgow Declaration on Forests that was issued here, but you also say that for some areas that are more vulnerable in the Amazon, you are recommending an immediate moratorium on deforestation. Do you have a map detailing which areas are these ones, so that policymakers can take a look at it and see what they can do about it?
Thank you for the question. On the top of my head, I don't remember if we do have a map in the report, but I could. But those areas are defined, and there are recent results from coming up on papers that are really indicating where these areas are located. So that information is available and could be used to take those decisions. Yeah.
I think like what Marielos was saying is correct. I'm not 100% sure we have the maps, but we know the areas. And I think one of our goal is that the panel could continue working. This was an assessment in specific areas where, for instance, because each area is going to be different as well, and work then with local governments precisely in those areas where they are reaching the tipping points. But the areas have been identified already, but you need to go into a much more detail of work. And there are a lot of complexity, not only in terms of the areas of biodiversity, but it's also legal issues involved that will need to be addressed. So we have to go deeper. You know, we have the first sort of cut, but it has to be done work, and that moment you have to engage also other stakeholders.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Richard Betts from the Met Office Hadley Centre and University of Exeter. I was pleased to play a very small role in this report. I was on the Tipping Points chapter as a contributing author. So first of all, congratulations to the author team on an amazing report. It's a fantastic achievement and really great to see it happening. My question is on the process of producing the report and how we can learn from this, because I've been involved in other assessments like the IPCC, and this one is different. It's much more multidisciplinary, truly multidisciplinary, and much more diverse. I mean, others are getting more diverse, but this one is particularly diverse in the author team, and the sources of information involving indigenous people and so on. So do you have any specific advice from what you did that was different? Did it just happen because you put the right people in the room together, or did you have to do anything in particular to make it as strong as it is in this regard? Thank you.
Maybe I could give some comments on that. So it started with a group of 60 scientists, and there were only scientists on different groups. But it was actually an organic growth. When we started to talk about the vision that Anne was working on this chapter, we invite more people to participate, and they started growing and growing. So at the end, we were 200 scientists, and indigenous communities participated on this. So I think that being inclusive and also having this intention that policymakers could use it, but also being independent in some ways, because we were growing organically, was very rich. It was a very rich experience because through the different workshops that we were having with people, each time we were more and more people that were included, and also the revision process was open. So a lot of people could participate, and this was very important because it enriched even more the chapters through time. So the sad thing, as Emma was saying, is that everything was done through Zoom. So we were doing it inside in the pandemic. So it's the first time that we know each other. So I think that my recommendation would be that the next meeting will be on presence, so we know, and I think more emerging things are going to come, because when we talk on I think like this face to face, there are way more enriching things. So yesterday we had the first meeting. Erika Berenguer was there, Josh was there, Emma was there, also Marielos, and just for 2 hours of talking, many things came out of those insights of being interacting with each other. So I think that right now, like an in-presence is going to be even more rich, and we're going to get way more than that. So in the future, I think that we should structure it in a different way, but the process has been rich and has been very, very good.
Thank you, Andrea.
I think that maybe in this process, and maybe not in a very conscious way, we have also learned from the processes like the IPCC. Think about how much time it's taking to try to connect the climate change discussion to the Convention of Biodiversity discussion, and this whole question that has filled up a lot of articles saying, okay, what is the contribution of biodiversity to carbon, So I think that maybe we have also learned from that process. And I think it is a complex system, so we couldn't only look at the biological aspect or we had also to include all these different components. I think that those were decisions that were really valuable for what we have at this moment. Also the composition of, regional researchers and international researchers working there. I think how many female researchers, male research, those things were things that we were discussing and that were actually thought about the composition to really have a balance in there, and I value that a lot.
Well, first of all, Richard, thank you so much, and we wanted to have you with us, and again, we didn't meet you, but he is also a member of the science panel, and I'm delighted that you're here. I would like to complement those comments. About 50, 60 scientists gathered in New York during the Secretary General's Climate Summit in 2019. And it was the time of the fires in the Amazon. The whole media was concentrated on the fires of the Amazon. Those scientists, led by Carlos Nobre, talked to Professor Sachs about the need of establishing a scientific panel for the Amazon. So we took that challenge, and we took the challenge because the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, presided by Professor Sachs, is a network of over 1,500 universities globally. And it's precisely, the idea is to work with these universities in support of the UN agenda in support of the implementation of the Paris Agreement, in support of development. So we have a development bias too. We obviously, it's a scientific, it is an environmental, but we definitely looking for development. So from the very beginning, we discussed, I personally discussed with the IPCC groups, IPBS, what were the lessons learned from there, and enrich that. And of course, we talked with the chairs and the scientific steering committee that was established. So I think it's an evolution, and we're hoping if the panel continues, we'll continue to evolve and enrich and also be relevant in policy making, being independent, being scientific. The value is that this is scientific. And I want to highlight that because our region, and Bolivian, our region does not invest sufficient in science, in technology, and innovation. And it's being concentrated on commodities and extractivism, and this is not going to be development for the future. So we need to invest in science, technology, innovation, and I think the panel is, a message on that direction. Thank you. Any other questions, Cecil, you have from the...
Thank you very much. We have also a lot of people joining via Zoom, and I have 3 questions. Maybe I just read them out, and then you can allocate on the panel, and you have some time to think about them. So the first question is in the context of the World Leaders Pledge earlier last week at COP. Why should the Amazon countries wait to 2030 to stop deforestation and forest degradation? Nothing justifies the deforestation, as millions of degraded and unproductive lands could be restored for agriculture. So it is estimated that there are at least 20 million hectares of such abandoned lands. So can this agenda already start as soon as possible? That's the first question. The second question, short one, was that an issue at the panel? How would you envision the collaboration with financial institutions? Could there be something like an index to track and monitor companies that they're not doing more harm? Is there a way maybe of certifying financial institutions in this region? And then the last question, do you think there's enough space for the voices of indigenous people at COP and maybe in the broader process altogether? Thank you.
Thank you, Cecil. Who wants to start? George?
Just the importance to stop deforestation and wait until 2030 to... Well, I have to say something, and I'm going to talk for the Brazilian Amazon, which I know better. 54% of the deforestation happening right now is happening in public lands. Most of it, they are undesignated public forests. So they are land grabbing, basically, illegal, like criminal activities. That should be stopped now, And we need the engagement of the government. Enforcement agencies are very important for that. But also we need the engagement of companies on that. We need to be able to say that companies are not buying any product from illegal, from areas that have been grabbed in the Amazon. We did this before. Brazil knows how to do it, and we need political will to do it. We need a strong institution to do it. Science knows where the problem is going on. We have the best monitoring. We have good satellite images. We have everything, all the tools. We need political will.
Queria só complementar o que a Anne está falando, porque a instituição que ela é cientista colabora conosco lá no Pará e no Amazônia Agora, e dizer que uma das coisas que é importante nessa rodada de conversas aqui é a vontade política, e nisso o Pará tem. Nós aumentamos de 10 fiscais para 115 fiscais o número de fiscais na Secretaria de Meio Ambiente do Pará. E formamos a Força Estadual de Combate ao Desmatamento, envolvendo polícia, civil, militar, bombeiros, Instituto de Perícia Científica. Já estamos na 17ª operação e diminuímos o desmatamento nas áreas de jurisdição do Estado do Pará, em perspectiva, que vai ser ainda lançado o final PRODES, do sistema que conta o desmatamento, em cerca de 12%. é um esforço, mas isso não pode ser um esforço único. Tem que ser um esforço cooperativo e conjugado que envolve, inclusive, a iniciativa privada. Então, é só um reforço de que há vontade política nos estados subnacionais, e que nós aceitamos e acolhemos esse tipo de painel. Sabemos que é um painel científico, mas eu repito e insisto, todo o esforço científico deve ser absorvido por governos e transformados em políticas públicas. Obrigado.
Regarding the timing, and this is my personal opinion, I agree that 2030 is too long. We need to have annual commitments on how we work on deforestation and degradation and restoration of many areas, because many areas have been already destroyed. So 2030 for me is too long. And we have seen, you know, the governments that are now there are not going to be there anymore. So we need commitments that are annually, and how we really not just not cut, but really restore ecosystems that are already degraded.
Nosotros vinimos aquí, yo creo que este va a ser una de las últimas COP que vamos a venir, pues queremos acciones. Han preguntado si nos han oído. Siempre nos han oído, pero desde lejos. En esta COP ha habido muchos compromisos. Se han comprometido grandes países de Europa y filántropos. Han aceptado una propuesta de financiamiento a los pueblos indígenas que se llama Shandia. Financiamiento directo a los que realmente están cuidando el territorio todos los días, sin calendario. Pero ahora hay un nuevo elemento. Generalmente la ciencia hablaba sola. En este informe hablamos en varias voces. Hemos hablado juntos. Lo que decían los científicos hace 10 años, nosotros lo hemos dicho hace 15.000 años. Entonces ahora hay una sintonía en el mensaje. Pero ahora falta acción, ahora falta financiamiento, ahora falta cooperación conjunta, y eso es lo que esperamos. Nosotros nos retiramos hoy de esta COP, pero esperamos en 10 días ya queremos acciones, queremos ver en nuestros territorios, en nuestras regiones, acciones con la ciencia, con la empresa, con los pueblos indígenas y con los gobiernos. Si eso no se cumple, simplemente seguiremos mintiéndole a la humanidad. Nosotros tenemos la esperanza que vamos a seguir luchando con esta crisis climática, política, económica, moral del planeta, y queremos eso. Confiamos en eso, no queremos catástrofe, queremos seguir luchando por la vida.
Thank you, Gregorio. I just want to comment a little bit on the question on the financial side, and I'd like to say that the panel is going to be engaged the next few months in a dialogue with a number of the institutions of the financial sector, starting with the multilateral development banks and then private banks, and hopefully, you know, at some point also with other partners to track the issues of the commitments. The panel cannot do that, but other partners can certainly do that. There was another question.
Sí, esta pregunta es para Gregorio. Gregorio, los expertos de la biodiversidad y del clima han dicho que no entienden, especialmente los del clima, han dicho que no entienden cómo evaluar el conocimiento tradicional. También cuando ellos se hablaron sobre el riesgo de pandemia, han dicho que ellos no saben cómo tener la confianza de los pueblos indígenas. ¿Qué dirías tú al mundo sobre la necesidad, lo que ellos tienen que hacer, el mundo científico, para que ustedes tengan confianza en ellos y puedan también comunicar el conocimiento tradicional a un mundo que no sabe integrarlo a sus trabajos científicos?
Bueno, simplemente, gracias. Simplemente, bueno, estamos aquí por eso, porque somos parte de este llamado de la ciencia y de los pueblos. Nuestro conocimiento es muy sencillo. Nosotros sabemos de los árboles lo que cura, sabemos de los árboles lo que sana, sabemos del agua lo que aporta para la vida, sabemos del bosque lo que podemos tomar y lo que no podemos tomar. Lo demostramos diariamente, no lo hacemos como un método científico, lo hacemos espiritualmente, porque podemos hablar con la naturaleza. Es una cosa muy distinta, pero ahora queremos que también eso se conozca. Y para hacerlo tenemos que trabajar juntos. O sea, nuestro método es muy sencillo, es en la práctica diaria. Pero eso tiene una conexión espiritual que no todos lo tienen nuestros sabios. Y no se aprende de la noche a la mañana. O sea, son también secretos de nuestros pueblos. Pero para dar esos secretos tenemos que seguir trabajando juntos. Y desde ahora en adelante, en la pandemia, se demostró que nuestras plantas medicinales, o sea, hay millones de plantas que todavía no han sido descubiertas científicamente. ¿Para qué sirven? Hay muchas soluciones en la selva que no se saben científicamente, pero si la deforestación sigue así, no vamos a tener la oportunidad de descubrirla.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I think, we were very timely. I want at this point to thank, first and foremost, the scientists that have worked on this amazing report. I want to thank all of our partners. We have many partners to thank, including peer reviewers, consultations. We also have an amazing technical secretary that has supported this work remotely. And we have some partners that have contributed in many, many, many ways. So I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank the inspiration that some of you have brought to this, including obviously Gregorio and the young scientists that have, from the communities that have worked with us. And I invite you to visit our website, and we're going to continue being rich. We will continue working on, and as I said, the idea is that the panel hopefully continues, and it goes into more depth on some of the many, many questions that still have gaps in the knowledge of the Amazon. And on our side, we will support the engagement with policymaking and with other stakeholders. Thank you all very much, and I invite you to see a final little short video as we all depart, and we all hope that we bring the Amazon with us to wherever we go. Thank you.